G'day legends, I hope that you are having a fantastic day and so far you are having a fantastic week. And hello from Omaha, Nebraska. Little bit of a drive today but pretty short, and I'm hoping that this video will be a little bit shorter than some of the previous videos as well. So legends, of course, as always, we do have a lot to go over. And like a bad omen, we did predict yesterday's large drone and missile attack. The title of the video, and throughout the video we spoke, there may be an imminent massive attack, just looking at the data and how there's peaks and troughs of these attacks. And not only have we seen a large drone attack, we have seen the largest drone attack from Russia into Ukraine, some 700 plus drones. And this is something that we have spoken about and we're going to speak about, is the manufacturing, the production of these drones. We could see that grow to over 1,000 a day, and that would have catastrophic consequences. So we're going to speak about that. We're going to speak about the US, what Trump is saying about Putin. We'll look at air defense as well. Of course, we'll look at the maps, but specifically, I want to show you an area for the last month that I've been talking about as the area that is concerning me the most. And I've been saying this is what the Russians will do in this area. And I'll show you the map here and talk about the goal of attritional war is to reduce the potential of your adversary, regardless of if that means moving forwards or backwards or up or down or doing this or doing that. The goal is to destroy potential. We'll talk about why that is being done in this area, but we'll start here at an update from yesterday's video, yesterday's hour-plus video. Trust me, you're not the only ones who said not to make videos that long. So did my partner on our first holiday in a long time. But there's an interesting part in this that I didn't even bother looking at, and that's on me. I take that, apologies very bad, that a gentleman behind the scenes, incredibly knowledgeable guy, gave me a quick point. And he said, the author is this gentleman. He served as the defense minister under Zelensky in his first year in office. So it is a view of victory from those close to Zelensky's inner circle. And remember, in this we spoke about, it seems like it is just academic jargon for moving goalposts around and changing what is victory and trying to just rebrand attrition into something positive. And this gentleman here says this perhaps accounts for why the article seems so divorced from reality and based on heroic assumptions for manpower, aid, material, etc. So thank you so much for that. And that really makes a lot of sense. And now things are coming together on this about making it operationally pointless, but also the assumptions being made around infinite manpower and aid, material, and infinite time that society will put up with war as well and have patience. I'm already seeing with desertions to immigration, that just is not the case. Now I want to talk about diplomacy. And I think a lot of people need to have a look at what diplomacy's actual meaning is, what the word means in itself. Because the German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, has said that diplomatic means for resolving the Ukraine-Russia war, quote, have been exhausted. And unless I am legitimately fucking blind, what diplomacy has Europe actually attempted? Firstly, diplomacy to have this war not begin in the first place, okay? Real diplomacy with real politic, real considerations as well. And a consideration doesn't mean that you agree, but consideration of this is how X person may see it. Now you may move forward and go, yes, but X person who sees it like that is incorrect, but that consideration was never there, okay? Then the war has begun, okay? So it doesn't mean that you can say, hey, look, things were done incorrectly before. You need to accept that, but now the war has begun. You can look back all you want, and hindsight is the foresight of arseholes. What you've got now is the war has begun. So diplomacy needs to take into account that there is current conflict. And since that time, what real diplomacy has Europe attempted? Other than holding meetings and serving wish lists which have nothing to do with the reality of war being politics by other means. And historically, I guess it is disappointing that a German chancellor doesn't understand the concept of war driving politics, that if it can't be done by the pen, it'll be done by the barrel. Of anyone who should understand that concept, it's Germans, historically from Bismarck all the way through. And he said, I'll lead to do everything in its power to prevent this, for freedom on the entire European continent. With a criminal regime talking about Putin and Russia openly questions another country's right to exist. But in this, okay, my question would be then, what now? You're saying diplomatic options have been exhausted. What now then? And I've seen people commenting under this, that means now everything's going to be deployed. Well, Germany's not doing that. The amount of equipment that Europe can do is it's either been late, or it's been delayed, or it hasn't been numerous enough, or it hasn't performed. What really is in the pipeline? Yeah, $100 billion looking at it. Yeah, people are talking about this, that will be a few years in the future. It's not signed off yet. And people don't understand the nature of attritional war. The number one priority is people. I don't care about the weapons. We're not at autonomy yet. You still need people behind each and every system. So if you say that diplomacy has been exhausted, well, are you exhausting all the other aspects as well? I don't see tourist missiles slung under planes, so you know what I am getting at. Now, let's talk about drones. And as I said, we predicted a huge attack. Again, it's not a prediction. I'm not here reading tarot cards with Putin and Zelensky's face on them. I'm looking at data and going, this seems to fucking add up. I'll show you that data in a second. Exactly like I've had people say, oh, it seems you can predict where the front line will move. No, you just look at attritional warfare doctrine, which is super fucking simple realistically. People just not like to overcomplicate the front line because it doesn't fit with attritional narratives. I guarantee if the attritional nature of war was going in the other direction from what it is now, every single dick and their dog would understand attritional nature and warfare doctrine. So the defense of Ukraine, they share this. So overnight, Russia launched 728 Shahed-type strike UAVs at Ukraine. It's a record number of drones, along with a number of missiles. Now, any interception rates, always in this war, whether it's Russia or Ukraine or whoever, take this with a grain of salt. But saying that, a huge amount of them, 296 taken then down and 415 with EW as well. So a huge amount of them being claimed. Ukrainian defenders work to protect lives, but we need more air defense systems. Now, what we do know is more and more of these drones numerically is going to have a higher chance of getting through. And of course, that a lot of these are updated that are coming through town. Now, these aren't just all the one-way attack drones. A lot of these are decoys as well. And this is the data of which I showed you yesterday of this gentleman here, but with now, of course, another line on it. We can see every 3 to 5 days, we can see a large spike in this, and we can see that large attack on the 4th and then the large attack that occurred overnight as well. And likely it will continue in this, but that trend line, it is still trending up. And this is something we have been speaking about with the production. Firstly, this is where these drones and missiles went. They went for airfields, industry, supply. The actual damage on these, well, we will never actually know. Along with the interception rate, we will never actually know. But it's likely going to be very high, especially with the Kinzhals that were fired into. We have some footage here from Lutsk. These are KH-101s with clusters on them here. Of course, these are a catastrophic weapon. But I talk a lot about mass in warfare, and this is exactly what we're going to see with the Garand drone. Attack on Ukraine comes as Trump castigates Putin. The number of Russian drones and missiles in a barrage set a single night record and underscored Ukraine's need for weapons, although the interception rate is still in the high 90%, of course. And Trump has said, I'm not happy with Putin. I can tell you that much right now. We get a lot of bullshit thrown at us by Putin. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless. And I've said this before. I've said that Putin, he'll talk with the US, he'll drag along, but he is not looking to settle the war, given the current situation, that he is saying, I'll either settle it at this border or I'll take that militarily and influence politics by war. Putin is conducting real politics. I'm not saying that I agree with it, but I'm saying that if you look at influencing politics by military matters, that is what is occurring here. And this is a very foreign concept to those in maybe liberal democracies in the West. Germans, it should not be a foreign fucking concept to you at all. You legitimately, quote, wrote the fucking book on it. But we are seeing that, yeah, it is stringing along. And I have said that at this point. And the problem is, what is Trump going to do in return to this? What, deliver 10 Patriot systems? That is the thing here. You should always ask, what now? What now? What now? And it may give you an idea of where the diplomatic channels are actually leading to. And by extending and stringing out, we know that time is on Russia's side, given the current nature of the war. Wednesday's attack underscored Ukraine's urgent need for weapons, as Russia has ramped up industrial capacity to mass-produce expendable exploding drones. New nightly records come weekly. Again, these are not coming from Iran, like everyone likes to say. It's been licensed from there, the information, the R&D, but these are being made in Russia and has increased that production. On Wednesday, Russia launched 728 exploding drones and decoys. According to the Air Force, that was 189 more drones than during the previous record volleys of 539 drones, which came on Friday. So record after record. As Russia's industry continues to gear up, military analysts say they expect Russia to routinely launch more than 1,000 drones per volley in autumn. And this is by mid-September. And we have been saying this. Within a couple of months, we could see these at over 1,000. And even at 90% interception, which I would massively question, but even at that amount of drones in the air, given the lethality of these, is absolutely massive. And I like that quote from that guy the other day that said, to the words with the effect of, air defense will not win a war, but a lack of air defense can lose one very quickly. And I don't really know, because everyone's looking at Patriots. Patriots are completely useless for a system like this. Putin would love you to shoot down one of these drones with a Patriot. That'd be fantastic. I don't know what's really being done to actually take down this amount of drones. And surprisingly, that they can now make these drones out of the washing machines and everything being sanctioned. I thought that there's a potato shortage, let alone a drone shortage. Inexpensive, mass-produced drones now pose the gravest risk for Ukraine. No, it doesn't. The gravest risk is attrition on the battlefield. There still is a ground war. It won't be won or lost just due to aerial combats. But of course, this is a force multiplier. But the Dagger missiles, the hypersonics, are important weapons for Russia geopolitically and also strategically. That a lot of these drones, that ties up a lot in the air, a lot of confusion started breaking through, and then those strike the real juicy deep targets. They can be shot down by only one defense system, the American Patriot missiles. There's still even questions over that, but let's go with yes at the time. That Kyiv can procure European-made substitutes for other kinds of weapons Washington has been providing. It is dependent on the Trump administration to keep open a pipeline of Patriots. So there can be other systems, but the Patriots, we need the US. They've been receiving. It draws down on stockpiles to send while replenishing US arsenal with newer items from manufacturing. We know this. But what we know here is that Zelensky has proposed that Ukraine buy Patriots with money from European allies. But it's not just the money that's the problem. Actually, the money is the least of the problems. There's two problems in this. Firstly, the problem I haven't written down, which is the US and their optics of supplying weapons while trying to be a mediator in the middle. It doesn't really work. That's why Trump keeps hammering on defensive, because that can still fit in that narrative. But it's not just the money or the optics. It's the physical industry, it's the manufacturing that it needs to be able to replenish the amount that the US need in stock as well and send to Ukraine. And everyone talks about money like the US and other nations just have an infinite amount of these sitting in a warehouse somewhere. The US, at the end of the day, is 80% of NATO's firepower. And if someone starts moving across a border on any NATO state or any Australia or any other state, it's the US people will be turning to, and we see that the US is running low on some of this equipment. From The Guardian, the US has only about 25% of Patriot missile interceptors it needs for all the Pentagon's military plans after burning through stockpiles in the Middle East. The stockpile of Patriot missiles has fallen so low that it raised concerns inside the Pentagon that it could jeopardize potential US military operations. So the appetite to send more here is low, and the numbers are low in production. It's going to take a while to really hit back on this, and restock and refill. But what analysts also need to understand, which isn't always being taken into account, is that it's not just one interceptor equals one incoming missile being taken down. Very often, multiple are fired per missile as well. So Trump, when he says, and has been reported about 10 to 12, that is at best a single night of air defense. It needs to be in the hundreds, and the manufacturing production needs to fit this as well. And it's not just, if money was going to solve wars, this war would have been solved. So let's look at the map. Of course, you have Ukraine here in the center of your screen, the capital of Kyiv. The red areas occupies since 22, the purple since 2014. Did I say 22 on the red, 14 on the purple? I may have misspoke. Apologies. Now let's come into the Tournai front, an area of which I've been saying concerns me the most ever since we were back here around Ivanivka and Tournai. And what I've said is the Russians will move out to Karpivka, which is approximately 12 kilometers from the Oskil waterway here. They will then try and expand this ground and create a fatal funnel through here. So this area in here becomes then a kill box, a fatal funnel, whatever you'd like to call it, to reduce military potential. And what I've been saying is any of this area in here, I can't see Russia putting up much resistance to hold, because they're more focused on keeping this open in here. But what they will do is try and expand and fatten this to reduce Ukraine's ability to take this back. We will see it expands for desaturation of drones and lines of communications into this area too. And this is exactly what we have seen around Zeleny Dolny. And for weeks at least, I've been saying this is the front line that concerns me the most, because Ukraine still need to funnel things into this area, and this front in here, but it can only come one way. And what we know is from Ukrainian soldiers at the front saying everything within 15 kilometers is being hammered by drones, and at best this is 13 kilometers with a waterway, nothing in the north. And what I have been saying is we will likely see Ukrainian counters in here to try and open this up, as well as to the north around Pishane too. And we have seen some limited assaults to attempt to do this. So let's look at let's look at how deep this is. And this is, in my opinion, not just over one day. So we go from here to here, we're talking about 4.7 kilometers, but it is a fairly wide area. From here to here, we're talking 13 kilometers. So this is a long way. We're going to set a record for kilometer squares this month. Now, deep states say this: enemy advancing near Zeleny Dolny. The enemy continues to apply pressure on Hirovka all the way to Toretsk, probing for weak spots in the defense, doing everything possible to push Ukrainian fighters out of their positions. Just like in many other areas, they're relying heavily on infantry, a lot of infantry. Ground war, season-hold ground. It's worth noting that Russian advances in Zeleny, it didn't happen suddenly or all at once, so it's been ignoring this for an amount of time. It came as a result of constant pressure and losses. Again, attritional warfare is constant pressure on the ground, so tactically, strategically, in the air or in other battle spaces as well, and diplomatically, politically as well. They crawl through fields and tree lines, willing to spend half a day covering even short distances. There are also reports of invisibility cloaks they use while advancing from thermal. Something we previously mentioned in a post about Lubkove. Russians are actively using FPV drones against positions, movements, and mostly targeting logistics, which makes holding the defense significantly harder. And we know being used in this area, not just Zeleny Dolny, this funnel, which I've spoken about, which concerns me, but those drones, they are used in tandem with larger artillery, such as the glide bombs or larger barrel artillery. That's why I put drones, barrel and glide still under artillery, but they all work mutually together. But the defence forces are trying to hold the line, giving everything they've got. and even taking any opportunity to improve their tactical position by counterattacking when possible. And this is what you need to be doing in defense, is taking every opportunity to improve tactical position. But this doesn't mean moving forward to it. Every opportunity to improve tactical position, that means you need to give initiative to the soldiers on the battlefield to make their own decision to withdraw, to have a fighting withdrawal to improve tactical position as well, which people will say is happening, in my opinion, has not been. It's a tough direction because there's always been orders reported of hold at whatever cost. It's a tough direction and has been hot for a while. The goal is now to smother the fire and exhaust the enemy's resources as they continue to press non-stop. But again, as I said, they'll press until this sector and then open it up and want to leave this open for then destroying potential. So we see this is the first update we have from Suryak maps, and he's talking up in this sector in here, right around Horoshenkove. Russia made some ground and Ukraine had to push back in and around Rikadab. And I've been saying that if I was a Ukrainian commander, this is where I'd be trying to actually make ground, is to unblock this. I wouldn't care about any of this in here at the moment. It would either be in here or to try and push this back. This is probably going to be easier than here, given the Russians can leverage off the Ost skill. And then we have then a second map update in here that then shows Zeleny Dolny areas coming under control and filling in between this western extreme down to the southern extreme and more areas as well, just north of Kharkivka, showing that there has been a large amount of expansion in this sector. And then, as I said, in this area here, I don't see the point of keeping much resistance as long as you can keep this open. If I was Russian, I'd be moving these troops to here. If I was Ukraine, I'd be trying to move troops to unblock this, not to create an opportunity to have huge amounts of attrition. And we see some small movements in here. We see Rayhodka, Novoserhivkia, just some small movements in here. The locality of Kopanki is under fire control of Ukrainian army on the other side, clashes with the Russian army, continues Zeleny. So realistically in here, Zeleny, still movement in here, that it's still would definitely be grey zone, and some areas around Kopanki coming under control. Again, we could see a lot of liquidity in here. Again, attritional war is not about kilometre squares. It's the only good measurement we have, though, because we don't know casualty rates. But attritional war, first and foremost, is about having a positive rate of attrition and reducing the enemy potential. Right, let's move our way down the maps. And where are we going to go to next? Let's move into the north. And we have, of course, where Russia has been into Sumy. Ukraine has had a counter in here. This map is not showing it yet, but it will. Suryak is now showing this. Apologies on this map in here that it did cross this road in here to the north of Kindrashivka. Kindrashivka, on the other hand, recaptured the northern part of this, but also saying that Russia has then moved across the border down just in the sector to the west of Ugoyevo as well. So this sector in here coming, not only does he suggest Ukraine's not holding any ground along here, but it's pushed across where my cursor is at the moment. So wait out on that. I'm seeing people say that I've literally seen someone who's very popular online say that this movement in here was the entire plan of Kursk now coming into action. The cope is off its fucking nuts. And then let's go into the northeastern and Kupiansk area, where we still see the Kupiansk Island boys of Kindrashivka are still hanging out, and we can see Suryak is saying that there was some correction made in this between Radkivka and Kindrashivka. They're pushing in on here, but again, this is not going to be dislocated at this area in an attritional grinding nature of war like this. Let's then move down into the south, and this is an area which hasn't moved for years, and now that it's moving is of large concern. And let's have a look at this. So around Plavne, the same situation here, they're completely capturing the western part of Kamyanske and reaching the outskirts as per this map is showing. And then we come up to the next update in this direction and showing that this is filling in all the way from Lobkove through Kamyanske as well, now clearing the eastern parts of this. And then we come where we see Orokhiv, and then we have Huliapol, and let's bring up the Suryak maps. Again, and showing that the Russian army expanded a buffer zone around Malinivka to the north and east. So we have Malinivka in here, of course Poltavka just above this, and showing that this is under control and now expanding. The goals in the south, firstly, would be Orokhiv and Huliopol, and then leverage of the Dnieper River if there is larger assaults planned in this direction. But I believe it's probably a secondary front for the south and the the east and the north at the moment. But again, if the opportunity presents itself, that's that frontline flexibility to be able to shift where an opportunity is. Let's come then into Velika Novosilka. We see Velika here. Again, Tolstoy, Zerka. We do have a couple of geolocations in here. So in Tolstoy, just to the north west and just to the east, it's actually just above sort of this T, but I wanted to keep the labeling in there. We do see that there's been 2 Russian flags flown in here, confirming that advancement to the best of our abilities. Then we have, of course, Pokrovsk. And again, this front is looking significantly different. And let's look at Pokrovsk actual on the western side at the moment. The Russian army made new advances south of Muravka. So this is Muravka in here, and then to the south of here where this grey zone is, he's saying that is coming under the red. See how this front line is levelling out. I think on multiple different axes, we will see entry into Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, and then on the eastern side, we see more red check on this map towards, of course, Konstantinivka. This is eastern flank Pokrovsk, western flank of Toretsk, as Toretsk battle is coming to a close. So Mirolubivka to the north of here, we see more movements in around Razine to filling in this Kopteve area, as well as some small movement in this direction around Alexeyevka. Of course, just confirming that movement. And then we'll come to Toretsk itself. No changes shown on this, but from all the mappers that I'm seeing, that it's saying Toretsk realistically is coming mostly under Russian control. Looks like it is coming to an end, but around Delivkia area, where we have had multiple geolocations over multiple weeks, that these areas leveraging off the canal here that have crossed the canal is coming under Russian control. So it's all through this area up in here. So all the way from Ozernivkia, all the way up through Delivkia, this in here is leveled off in there. And from the geolocations that I've seen, tends to be the case. The problem with the canal and the loss of the canals is a really good, I'll call it a natural barrier, because it's not being made just for the purpose of war, like a defensive position, but the natural, these areas like a canal gives a good area for attrition. You don't want to cross over that. And that's what I've seen many guys I've spoken to saying around Chasiv Yar, we need to leverage on the canal and not let a foothold across. Legends, how's that? We are under half an hour and we have covered off on everything. I hope that you have a fantastic day, and I will speak to you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.